Hello and welcome to another episode in Mr. Christopher's life. Yes, I'm standing on a tree and there's another tree, and I just had the idea of, could I jump this? I mean, that's of course also part of being inside a natural environment. One naturally wants to find out what is possible. Wait. Oh, is the boost on? Okay, I'm just gonna turn the hyper boost on simply because otherwise apparently the movement, I want it to be a bit more like flying. It's also supposed to be a nice experience. No, I'm a bit skittish. Okay, this is the... I just want to do it like this, right? I just want to see if it's possible. And then to land, of course. With a backpack, it's... Okay. Wow! Yep. Now, of course, back is a bit harder because it's upward. Wow! But the more often you do it, the easier it becomes, of course. And I don't just want to be here and say, hey, look at me, look at me. I also want to look at myself. Of course, that's with all the self-absorption camera and stuff. I just want to see what is possible if you undo the conditioning you have received. Wow, that is incredibly smooth. If one gets used to doing things without shoes. Okay. Right? Okay. I'm still figuring out how to do this. The camera has skipped me a couple of times. I'm now walking until I'm done, and then I'm gonna read Peter Pan chapter 4. Today is Tuesday. The new routine is working like a charm, my friend. But I'm still getting used to it. But another point is, it's clearly getting better. I mean, I stopped drinking coffee some time ago now. It took me a while to get there. I'm just going to talk about this for some time. Why? Because this is about discovering nature. And one of the most important things about discovering nature is the you that gets to discover nature. Because what I can say safely from my own life is that the way I used to be, I could have never done this frequently. Now, I don't suppose that's just my life, because I simply saw my way out to a certain degree with the help of what appears to be my parents, right? So, if you cannot do this, then don't blame me, don't blame your parents, don't blame life, because blame is a waste of time. What you have to do is simply take responsibility to... Today I'm not gonna collect any mushrooms, I suppose. Unless there are some very nice specimens, but I have collected enough. But I'll see. I mean, if there's like a really nice, like a stone mushroom kind of thing, then why not? Okay. So you have to look at the things that stand in your way. That's your way, that's your path, that's your riddle. That's what you have to find out. And believe me when I say that one is reluctant to accept help. Even if it comes from, right, your parents. Oh wow. Hey, that's a cute specimen. Oh wow! Oh man! Sorry. These are beautiful. And I'm gonna take them home to dry them. Right. I'm just saying. Because it is my firm belief that it is much better to take things from a natural environment if one has the chance to do so. You know, I'll say if you don't, then find a way to get there. I mean, there is no evidence whatsoever that one needs sugar in the way that is being sold to the masses. There is no evidence whatsoever. It's just marketing. And what I learned was that all these ideas about diet made me so sick. In the end, it was actually quite simple. It was, in the end, it was quite simple. It was reduce, improve, and then rejuvenate or something. Well, you know, if you like these kinds of things, but I cannot let this stand. I saw this, I felt like I'm gonna take the dry mushrooms because I have been doing a lot of reading. I have educated myself a little on what to take in terms of mushrooms. Okay, and these I will dry at home. And then I will use them for soups. But you have to do your own research on what kinds of mushrooms are edible. And then also how to dry them, how to preserve them. I mean, this is basically me discovering nature. And I'll treasure these, believe me. These are my treasures. This is my treasure chest. The stuff I have collected myself. The apple mousse that I have made myself. And that is waiting for me. Wow! Giant. But if they're too wet, then one should let them stand. Okay? I mean, I am getting better and better every day. This is literally the Jake Sully story. You watched Avatar, you loved it. Just be your own guide. You know, whatever you think Neytiri is, sure, right? You're a warrior. You want a warrior bride. So what do you think Neytiri is? No, she's wild. She's wild. So you need to be wild. You need to be wild and free and You have to kick your legs. But in order to kick your legs, you have to first work hard to free yourself. And then what you start to see is that this world is what it is right now. But that each of us as individuals that learns to reconnect with what we once knew, which is how to be okay on a fairly chilly day. What's chilly? On a fairly chilly day in a natural environment without shoes. I mean, to most people, this is useless information. And to me, what is useless information is your reminiscences about what you've read or the stuff you know about other countries. Oh wow, what's this? Oh wow. This is okay, that's difficult to interpret. It could be the panther mushroom, or it's the possibly an Amanita rubescens, but it may also be the Amanita, I think it's called Pantheria. Now, please be careful when you collect your mushrooms, because you simply don't know unless you've ingested it. Now, I can safely say that I'm quite strong, I'm quite tough, but I wasn't always strong or tough. I was small and wiggly and foolish, and I was looking for fun, and often as not at the cost of others. So until I got to the point where I could start to discover nature on my own, and that, of course, now the question of the camera is highly relevant, because am I really alone if I carry a camera? Well, I am, because if something happens, then there's only me. If something happens, then there's only me. I'm completely self-reliant in that sense. I never bring a phone, or you could say I stopped bringing it. I stopped bringing a phone, and I started to look at who I was, and then I tried to, like, this is the basics. You just had an understanding with yourself. You want to get back to nature. You want to merge into nature. But there seem to be certain barriers that you cannot cross. So you see yourself not as this physical thing, but as a spirit, and you realize that your life is more like a dungeon. It's more like a maze. There are certain ways, there are certain passages that you cannot access because you're lacking the key. And the key you may get from someone else first. Which is why you have to be respectful, at the very least, to anyone that you meet. Now, I can respectfully ignore you, right? Or I can disrespectfully pay attention to you. So sometimes I also have to pay respect to myself, to stay somewhat like self-contained. Because if I'm walking in a natural environment and I simply have to push through because I set myself a task today there is a part of me that I would like to visit. And that part of me is the me that's in nature. The natural me, right? Well, then how do I get there? How do I become one with the idea of myself as somebody that frequently goes into nature and that feels comfortable? Well, if you are still reluctant to do it, and when you go to nature you don't really know what to do in it, well, then you have to simply inform yourself. You know, that's in a way what I did. I looked at what I felt I was missing, by looking at what other people did. And then you could say I was biding my time. I was looking for a way through to my real self, the one I remembered. I was looking for a way through, and in that sense for a way out of clinging to each other. You know, also in terms of parents, you know, and the mothers that smother. So I had to basically confront the ideas of life that had been planted into my mind. And I had to start gardening in myself. And that is basically a very hard process, because anyone who has ever worked in a garden, which, you know, on their own, and paid attention, you know, the ivy doesn't want to leave because it just settled there and it wants to stay. It doesn't want to leave, so you have to, you know, rip it out. You can do so respectfully, but you say, the ivy is overtaking everything else. You know, I wish to be this to be more like a flowery meadow. You know, also that the tree can breathe or something. Beautiful. You know, this is part of discovering nature. Of course, you cannot see it, but look at this. Wow, the lushness. You know, it's an entity, my friend. And it's so sad when you realize that people can no longer see this, that you forgot to see it. And now the really difficult part for me was, yeah, I mean, you just have to tackle whatever keeps you. What keeps you? Your desire to do this, your desire to do that. Your desire to do all the things that you wanted to do, but never did. You know, that can be a trap in itself. To just be stuck at desiring. Well, what if you desire the desire because you're too afraid to let go and just discover nature? Because what am I to do now as what you may call a content creator? Somebody who basically films parts of his life and shares it, makes it accessible, and well, okay, what am I talking about? You want to go into nature, man, just go into bloody nature. I mean, you want to listen to me explain to you discovering nature? You think this is going to be some kind of a nice experience for yourself? Oh, I'm going to watch this guy and then he's going to walk me through it. No, I ain't going to do shit for you, my friend. You know, that's what I did. You're watching my video. I went out there and did this. You can follow me all day long, but this will never make us any closer to each other. It will bring more distance. You know, you can get closer to the idea you have of me by starting to change your life, little by little by little. And then realizing this, I mean, not what you're seeing, but what I'm seeing, because I'm here walking. This is the real life. This is what it's all about. This is the bloody path, my friend. You're looking for the path? Well, you're sitting on it. You stopped walking it and you started sitting it. And nothing's happening because you're stuck. You feel like you're moving, but in terms of spiritual energy, you're stuck. Because one cannot progress if one refuses to be active or do. You have to at least do something. But if you keep on doing the same things in the same way, without having checked what they actually do to you, well, then you don't know where this is gonna get you. Well, I can tell you where it's gonna get you. If you sit a lot, you're gonna get better at sitting, you know? But then you're not gonna walk around, and then you're not gonna discover nature. But you may travel to it in your mind, but that's all you're gonna get. And you're never gonna be with Neytiri, because Neytiri would have never fallen for Jake Sully, for the later to become Turuk Makto, if he would have sat around. Now you have to ask yourself, who are you in relation to everyone in your village? Well, I'm no longer in my village because, you know, I moved away to some big place that seemed promising. Well, time to make haste, my friend, because all the good stuff is going to waste. Because all the good stuff you can find in villages, which is why if you're good at life, then you'll be in a village. You know, that'll be your sanctuary. And then you're gonna start building. And you're gonna take away your power from these hungry beasts. You know, like the idea of some kind of a metropolis or something. You know, you're just gonna take your vote away and you give it to nature. You give it to somewhat local, to a certain degree, right? You know, stepwise. Because you also want to experience every step of the way. And remember why it is you chose a quiet life in the end. That's what you want. You want to understand the choices you've been making so you can start making different choices. You want to understand it. You want to listen. You know, no longer do you wish to forget. I said to myself, the harvest is over. I am just gonna let it stand here. It's just too much. I have collected a lot of them already. You know, they're pretty strong. And plus, you never quite know where it gets you. But it is certainly interesting to simply connect with the natural world. And then to simply find out, you know, what is normal. It is still normal. The norm doesn't exist. There is no norm. But this is normal. Not the camera, but the me that walks in nature. Not the talking. That isn't normal. That is just living a lush life. And not having to harvest one's own food. This is living in a society that kind of copes well. Where at least the basic things, you know, are taken care of. Which is, you know, there's gonna be food. There's gonna be all kinds of things. And then there's gonna be you and other people. And now you wake up, or you are being born, and you look at life, and everything's concrete. Everything's like edgy. Everyone's on edge, you know? Nobody likes this kind of a life, not really. The only thing they do like is condescension. And then suddenly you go into nature. Now you're an orc in the Shire. It's like, this is all wrong, you know? These trees must be burned. Where's the furnace? You know, where are other orcs like me? So you go around, you look for them, you know? You may find some. And then you realize, well, welcome to the Industrial Revolution. An orc came to the Shire, wanted to make use of it, and we're still seeing the consequences. You know, just have to turn them all into orcs. So we can all be orcish. But I don't want to be orcish. You know, I want to be natural. And that's the whole idea. I mean, of course, you can also see orcs just as whatever they are. Okay, now this is about discovering nature, but I always get drawn into this society thing. Because now there's not that much to discover. You may find this boring. It's like, what am I seeing? There's nothing. I don't see anything. Well, yes, you see yourself in nature. You get this? Living somewhat like the observer. You observe yourself. You say, I don't know, but this Christopher guy, you know, I mean, you have to say that to yourself. I don't know who you are or who you appear to be, but I can say to myself, you know what, I keep seeing this Christopher guy and I feel like he deserves, you know, like a good life, but not on the cost of others. I mean, we're all working together in a way, right? But you don't just work for your own benefit. You do what you can, but then you also see to it that you'll have moments where you also can relax, right? Because if I can't do anything, then I also can relax. But every time I relax, you know, I also have to prepare myself already mentally to pick up work again when there's something that needs to be done. Now, you were raised to simply obey somebody else's idea. Like, you're just supposed to obey orders from people that have no other motive but to make you a part of their idea of the world, which is, you know, this and this country, you know, needs you to give all you have to it. You know, you should be devoted to this country. You know, we're like a great nation. Any country works like this. You know, and then there's all kinds of companies that work like this, you know. Anything basically works like this. And I simply said, hey, I don't know. I'd rather go more into nature. And bit by bit, you'll figure out when there are times where you can go into nature and almost, or basically, meet no one. Right? This is what you have to figure out on your own. And then it's your choice. So I'm not here in that sense to convince you. I'm just here to assist you in making that choice, in slowly but surely, you know, taking yourself out of the industrial game, but then also see it all as highly relative. Because in the end, I also choose to share myself on the internet again and again and again. Although I could say, well, it's very toxic, it's very bad. Yeah, but everything's bad. I was just in a tea shop. I'm just doing some loose conversation now because I am discovering nature, right? And you could be, if you weren't stuck at listening to me. Or maybe you just stumbled into here. Well, all I'm talking about is basically what could keep you from discovering nature. You know, I just went to a tea shop. I don't know, this is just what I feel like doing today. You know, because I have a mission. Today, I want to make a bit of distance. I ate a bit of the pickled vegetables that I made myself that I'm gonna cover in a video at some stage. Just how to pickle your own vegetables. It's really easy. Just need a container, a big one or small. And then you need salt water with a certain salinity of 2 to 3%. And that makes about 15 grams of salt per liter of water. And that is about a tablespoon, like loosely, right? And that's the same amount. So if you want to pickle, you can pickle anything. That's awesome. I mean, maybe not anything, but I assume it, I mean, maybe you can even pickle bananas. I don't know. I haven't tried. It's hard to say. There's probably too much sugar in it. And then it may just turn into alcohol or something. Okay. I just went to a tea shop and I bought something somewhere. What? I went to a tea shop to buy green tea. And I said to them, right, so sometimes you just walk around and you make discoveries. And sometimes you just say, hey, today I want to see myself make a new round. Like try another hiking trail. Or today I want to see myself, you know, hiking this specific route. Because I have seen myself hiking it several times, but I always chickened out. Today I want to do it. I want to walk it to the end and then find some kind of a spot where I can read chapter 4 and then go back and recharge, make myself some green gunpowder tea. Okay, I was in the tea shop and we were talking about stuff, and then I said to her that I buy spices in this Indian shop. In this Indian shop, black cardamom. I talked to her about this, and then she said, yeah, but do you know how many pesticides are on his spices? And I have to say, no, I don't know. But what I know is that the world itself is toxic at the moment. And I can also say that, you know, sometimes it's better to have the spice, you know, and learn to work with it. And then see where it gets you. Okay, these are edible. I think it's called blackthorn. It's a prune. Prunus something. And they can be... I have eaten them already. They're very acidic, but I have no problem with that. Wow. But they're also a bit bitter. It's called prunus something. But don't take my word for it. Just check it yourself. Yeah, I'm not gonna collect this now. Because the way it looks like, they'll be here also next year. Sometimes I keep things for next year, so I know I'll stick around. You know, sometimes it's better to just keep things for next year, so you can keep working yourself out until it becomes easier and easier to simply do things. Okay, so she was confronting me with the pesticides and then all that kind of stuff. And then I say, well, but technically you also don't know. You may say, yeah, this is this and this tea and it's very high grade and all that kind of stuff, but how do you know? So sometimes I just go for I like the spice. But I have clearly decided also to stick with the world shop kind of chocolate with 95% cocoa rather than the, you know, really sweet and milky stuff. So discovering nature is about seeing yourself in nature and then making it a reality. But you cannot just always go. Sometimes there are things you have to do first. Because you realize every time you go into nature, other things come. You know, there's like maybe your parents worry, or let's say your wife is pregnant. Well, too bad. Then you have to make a standing. You know, if your wife's pregnant, then maybe it's better to not go into nature and just stay with her. Or you go when you feel like going. And then bring back fresh energy from nature. So the household remains stable. Because let's face it, we all have to do a lot of cleansing. Emotional cleansing. And before we've done that, nothing will ever change. We have to start seeing ourselves as a part of an environment, which is why to a certain degree, yes, there is something to gain from also simply living in cities. Only cities are basically a product of corruption, which is why the more time you spend in them, the more you may get corrupted. So you have to pay attention, which is why focus exercises are simply, without having to mention it, what you really have to do. You have to learn to focus so you can see what is trying to use you for their own cause. You have to see yourself in the environment that you are in. But to the spiritual self, you could say there is no real need to discriminate against the one or the other. What you have to do is simply observe, pay attention, and then choose accordingly. You know what's natural? Well, like I said, not every sapling is gonna make it into a big fine tree. So you have to want to grow. And just like other people have said it, growing is hard work. Really hard work. It needs focus. And if I grow spiritually, then it's like a snake shedding skin. And every time you shed a skin, you may come out more vulnerable. So a tree sheds skin. We shed skin all the time. You sleep at night on your mattress and then you shake out your pillow the next day. There's like flakes and dandruff. That's skin, that's you, that's just old stuff. And maybe it's a sign of something, right? Maybe it's a sign of overconsumption. Maybe it's a sign of lack of dehydration. Maybe it's a sign of whatever. Yeah. So sometimes you don't get to play around all the time, because discovering nature is serious business. I mean, this is about survival. Because you want to be a survivor. You want to keep on living. Maybe like some of the characters in You know, like books like Hyperion. You want to become the way the... Oh, blast me, how would they call? How would they call? Now this... Ah, so many passages, man. It's just so long. You know, that's the boundary. Every time I go into nature, I start bickering. I start bitching about that it's too long, that I want to go back, that I want to do this, that I want to do that. But now I want to be in nature. But every time I go into nature, I feel drawn to go back. But what is there where I just came from? Okay, there's all the food that I know I can eat. Yeah, but only because you think you know you can eat it doesn't make it a contributor to a healthy and good life. Well, I don't want to have a healthy and good life. Well, the only reason you feel that way is because you're weak or too weak to see the difference it could make. No, I don't want to have a healthy and good life. I just want to be in the puddle of my own misery. Yeah, like I said, because you're too weak to see how different it could be. So you have to pick yourself up. You have to build yourself up from the ground. And you have to trick yourself into going hiking. So you should see either, well, maybe first you start like this. If I go hiking barefoot in a natural area, you know, you do your homework. What's venomous, what's poisonous, how fit are you? Are you gonna get back? Whatever, I don't know who I'm talking to, you're self-responsible. So if you can get yourself to just take a casual stroll in a natural environment without shoes, then afterwards you're gonna get some kind of a reward. This is how you have to start. You have to start deconditioning yourself from the way you've been conditioned. And you have to see how you can trick yourself into doing what you actually want without feeling like you're missing out on other things. So let's say today I'm gonna go for a stroll or a hike, and then later I get to watch a movie. And I get to eat all the food that I want to eat with it. And then I can be as unconscious as I want to be, as long as I just go for an hour hike. Well, and then you've done that. But you've also done the other thing that you still like, which is then, you know, being a bit stupid. And I have these moments. I mean, I showed you how to make the popcorn. Well, guess what? What do you think I did? I just ate it all, is what I did. In one go. It was an entire pot. Well, but that's what I used to do. I used to go to the cinema and buy an entire pot of popcorn. And now I sometimes make myself a pot of popcorn and I just eat it. Just like that. So, is this wrong? So question, do I have to walk? I know roughly this is the direction. I have been here before. I don't necessarily feel like walking where I would normally walk. But sometimes you maybe just have to do it. So sometimes you just have to pin yourself down to hike a certain way. But at least this year is gonna be new. But I don't know where that's gonna get me. Oh shoot. Well, I know this way You know, I'm just gonna stick. I'm just gonna do this walk now. It's probably gonna take me 3 to 4 hours. And then when I'm gonna come back, I'm probably gonna make myself some green tea. You know, the gunpowder stuff I just bought. And then I'm gonna see to it that I am, you know, I first have to copy the files from the camera onto the computer. And if I have done that, I have to make the audio for the next yoga session. And then I can simply, right? So you know already, if you go every day at the same time, you know, you're gonna learn something in the end. But what are you gonna learn? Well, I'm still figuring my way out. I simply realized I cannot survive in this kind of society. I just cannot. I should have been protected from such a violent society. Should have been protected. That's what I truly believe. But I wasn't. I was almost consumed by it. And it could have led to an early death through suicide. I'm just saying. This is basically then partly my story. So, can you blame parents that have the money to support their child to then support it? What's the point? You look at me, you think, oh wow, he comes from a wealthy family. Yeah, and? Do you know what it means to come from a wealthy family? And what's wealthy? Because if a family has money, then emotionally, they're probably almost dead. Because then the father probably spent a lot of his time working his ass off to make a standing. But now they made a standing, and now what? Well, I simply started taking care of myself emotionally. And in such a way I learned to take care of, you know, by taking care of myself, I therefore learn and prepare myself already for being a father. And that's a very well-earned lesson. Right? That's a very well-earned lesson. That you realized all the things you needed were just timed together. Oh, wow. You know, now I don't feel like anything any longer. Which is probably often a good sign to start doing something else. So the idea of discovering nature is, like I said, you want to see yourself in nature because you can see from the higher mind that whoever you are as an individual is not doing so well anymore. And you realize that if you keep on living life like this, like everyone else, that you are most likely going to die in a very unmanly way. Which means to say that you're simply going to feel miserable. You're going to be some kind of a Scrooge, you know? Whether you're going to be wealthy and Scrooge or poor and Scrooge, you're just going to be miserable. You're going to be full of fungi from all the sugar and the yeast that you eat. And you're just going to feel terrible. You're going to be too weak to stand. And then you can say, well, that's exactly where they want you. That's exactly where they want you. and I say, yeah, I'd like to stop participating in this. Now I'm gonna make my way to the river and then read the 4th chapter, and then I'm gonna concentrate hard and focus on getting myself through this hike, so I can get back and feel like I have conquered an obstacle. No, I have surpassed my desire to run back home to all the comforts, and I stretched out the time in nature a little bit longer, so that each time you can do a little bit longer. And if you learn to navigate life without the sugar and without the coffee, and you actually, you know, it's not about to just stop drinking coffee or to just stop eating sugar. It's about letting go of it when the moment is exactly right. Which possibly means, and that's the tricky stuff, you have to test the boundaries. You know, if you're reluctant to let go of sugar, well, then maybe you still have some learning to do. But always keep in mind, you continue to eat sugar because you want to let go of it. But I can say, you know, you can take my word for it, that sugar is a trap. Because what you want is a conscious life. What you want is being here and now, and, you know, to be basically in a constant state of meditation. And for that you have to sort out the things that make you, or that create, an imbalance in yourself. You know, however many push-ups you can do, in that sense, I don't care. Because if you need sugar to eat them, then without the sugar, you could never do them. Plus, are you doing them, but you still feel empty? Because in the end, it's not the push-ups, right? It's not the push-ups. It's the holding of planks. That's the stuff. That's the tough stuff. It's the moving through life like a bit like it's a movie, but taking it serious, and you have to tackle a day at a time. Every day you can also introduce a bit of change. Now, the less clingy you are to the so-called to the so-called comforts of society, the better it's going to be in the end. Because then you could say, well, maybe there is something in once in a while drinking a glass of wine. But if you have tried it often enough, then you realize, I don't see it any longer. Because a tree doesn't drink wine. Well, but then you could say, well, but the tree produces fruits, and the fruits rot on the ground, and there's alcohol then. So maybe the tree does get drunk a little. I don't know, man. You know? I just know that it's pretty hard to keep on progressing if you are choosing what you may call the wrong things. Now, this is part of discovering nature. You just leave the beaten track and you just check what's here. Now, like I said, it's unlikely that I'm gonna meet bears here or wolves. The wildlife is really skittish, but in any case, it's better to pay attention and then to be able to react to any kind of a situation, like a weather shift, like a shift in your mindset that can shift as well. That's when I talk about passages or portals. You think you're just walking here as this physical thing, but there are other dimensions, and you may travel through them differently if you change what you put into yourself. Now, I have the last couple of days, I have gone back a little. I have watched The Sword of the Stranger, which is an anime. I have watched Kimetsu no Yaiba, which is Demon Slayer, Season 3. I have also watched the second movie of My Hero Academia. I think it's called Boku no Hero Academia or something. And I am also gonna watch the third one because I also need inspiration. And sometimes I feel stuck, and then I take partly watching movies as some form of a walking meditation, as a standing meditation, and somehow it helped me. I don't know. I watched a movie and I was standing the entire time. This is then endurance training. So, because I work hard, I push through, but if I no longer want to keep on living because there's things that I feel like I'm missing, or I need something to inspire me, then I look at the things that I know worked before with a bit of a distance. So this is basically what Kimetsu no Yaiba talks about, the Demon Slayer, only it talks about it in a very childish and immature way. While this is finding nature as what it actually is. Tranquil, soothing, but also hardening, cold water. Now, in a natural world, you would come here, take water, and bring it to wherever you live. Because you may not want to live down at the water, because that attracts also other kinds of animals and carnivores and other human predators that prey on others. So that's what you want your life to be like. You want to be a bit skittish. You want to be a bit vigilant at all times. Constant vigilance is then what Mad-Eye Moody said. So I'm still also the child that was born in '89 and loved playing computer games. Yeah, but now I also have to, I just have to keep on moving. I simply have to keep on chasing the me that I know I could be if only I let go. And this is, you have to be here to see this. And you have to do your cleansing and your hardening to know what I'm talking about. In everything that I have done, I was always in the middle of it, pushing through. So you have to look at what you need to do. You wouldn't watch this if your village would give you everything you need. You're watching this because you're missing something, and I'm telling you, this is what it is. Nature. That's what you're missing. Connection to spirit. And for that you have to let go. And then just stare into the depth of this beautiful clean water. And it just does it all by itself. I mean, this is the best place for meditation. And it does it all by itself. I can just come here and look at it. Because there's always going to be nature somewhere. Yeah. So why did I watch these movies? Also Sword of the Stranger. Because I simply wanted to have some kind of an idol. Someone I can look up to. You know, just an idea of myself. And for me, these anime work very well. Because it's often really to the point, but the feeling you have to get yourself. So it's not about being this wiggly kind of character. You want to be really like hard as rock. You want to be like the Zen master, maybe in Kill Bill. A bit like this, like really tough as nails, but then not an actor, but simply a real person. You simply want to be like this. And for that you have to do your hardening, do your cleansing, and then keep on living, and to a certain degree keep on giving, but also know when you have given enough.